Claudia, the EU has banned neonicotinoids 5 years ago. How is the situation today?
Well, the situation today is that we have a lot of emergency use requests, and at some point it feels that they are being used regularly.
How does that come? Who is asking still to use neonicotinoids?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Ah, sorry. Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I was wondering who is still asking to be able to use neonicotinoids?
So state members are asking for the emergency use of neonicotinoids because they justify it as not having another pesticide or another tool to control pests. So therefore, the use has been allowed under the Article 53 of the Regulation 1107.
And are those arguments valid arguments from your point of view?
Not always. Not always, because if you request it every year, all the time, every crop season, then you're not even trying to find another solution. You're just using a dispositive on the legislation that was put in place for emergency cases and not routinely problems. So there is an abuse of this dispositive in the legislation. And the European Court has already ruled that it should be cautioned and the allowance of the emergency use, and it should also be restricted. So we are restricting an already restricted directive on the legislation. So that's not a good place where we are now.
And from your point of view, what would be possible alternatives to using neonicotinoids?
Well, I think that the Green Deal opens a new avenue for Europe and other countries and other continents that pay attention on what we are developing here. So we have the farm to fork strategy that aims to reduce the pesticide application, and we have also the IPM strategy coming back into place in full force. These are potential alternatives for the overuse and the use of neonicotinoids and other possible pesticides with the same mode of action. So I think that at the moment we are on a tipping point on the food production system. And we need to understand that the legislation is here, the incentives are in place. We should just use them with more attention and with due care, not exploiting directives and articles that were put in place to regulate the overuse of these pesticides.
Can you briefly explain what IPM is?
Well, so there are different approaches for IPM. Some people call them ecology. Some people call them organic farming. So there is not one significant concept for IPM. But IPM, the definition is integrated pest management, where you use the ecosystem around and you use tools provided by nature in order to control pests on your plot, but also increasing biodiversity without the need to use pesticides. So pesticides are actually the last approach that can be done inside an IPM, which is something that not everybody understands, that pesticides can be used in IPM.
Can you give an example of more nature-based solutions that you mentioned?
Yeah, for example, you can use flower stripes. So flower stripes are a way of increasing local biodiversity by increasing food for pollinators. And by doing so, you can increase, if you have a crop that needs pollination, you can increase the production. So it was done some years ago, and some papers showed that for watermelon and melon, the increase in production was 64%. So it is a reliable source of input and development for agricultural techniques.
What do you think would be a solution for beetroots? I saw that the UK has, I think, allowed the use of neonicotinoids for beetroots.
Yeah, so I'll give you a general view on that. I think we have sometimes tunnel vision on the aspect, and we are very comfort on the position that we are nowadays. We have pesticides, let's use pesticides. Oh, but they cause damage to biodiversity. Oh, biodiversity is not a part of an agriculture system, so it's not really a problem. We need to produce food, so therefore we need to use the pesticide. If this pesticide is causing problems to biodiversity, it's too toxic, we, we can find a different one that is not going to cause the same problems. So I think we are on a loop here. And instead of trying to see what is on the sides, we are focused only on the pesticide alternative. There are other alternatives that can be used together with pesticides. We're not here, this report, it's not about the ban of pesticides. This report is about bringing awareness based on the scientific evidence that neonicotinoids are very, very toxic to biodiversity, and that there are other alternatives such as IPM, low-risk pesticides, biological control, and others that could be explored instead of just being on very comfortable in our position and just falling back to pesticide use all the time.
Now, outside the EU, how is the situation there?
Well, I can speak a bit about Brazil and Argentina. And the situation in these places is quite worrisome because 340 agrochemicals, pesticides, were allowed to be used in Brazil in the last 4 years, generating a bigger impact on biodiversity that is already suffering a lot. In Argentina, you have crops that have been altered in order to resist glyphosate. So, like soya, so you have full plantations of soya where you can spray a lot of glyphosate in there, and the plants will will resist the actions of this herbicide. So, the situation outside the European Union. It's worrisome. And there is not a plan in place like we have now, the Green Deal.
And does the EU still export pesticides that are banned within the EU to other countries?
Um,
Okay, no worries. That was just
I can say something different. I can say that the risk assessment of pesticides that are I can give you some other answer.
okay. That's fine. Just what you. I mean, that's anyhow. That's just my curiosity. So, but if
Yeah,
there's something
so
you can say about the topic, please go.
most pesticides, they are developed not for different countries. Most of them are developed for use in different countries. Therefore, a lot of pesticides that are under European Union regulation of the risk assessment, under legislation 1107, are registered here, but they can also be used in other countries. So therefore, the risk analysis is done here, and if deemed safe, they can be used here and in other countries. Of course, there are pesticides that are developed specifically for some types of pests that are or problems related to different types of climates, of crops, and then they are developed in that country and under the risk analysis of that country.
Thank you. It's very interesting, actually. Yeah, and you are very clear. It's super good for a layperson like me. So that's great. Um, I was wondering also the EU has now set a target, or the European Commission is proposing a target of reducing pesticide use by 50%, which is quite controversially debated right now. I think the EU rapporteur, she wants to even lower the pesticide use by 80%. Do you think 50% is realistic and feasible, or do you fear there would be a loss of food security? Would be a loss of productivity with this 50% target?
Well, a loss on productivity, I don't think it's realistic, because lots of papers have already showed that reducing or actually not applying, for example, neonicotinoids in some type of crops like soya, actually didn't change the productivity at all. And for plants that that are dependent on pollinator, the productivity actually increased, because then the pollinators will visit the flowers more often. So I think that since the state members, they have their own action plans, and they have their own culture concerning farming and agriculture, you will see different solutions from different countries. So is the reduction of 30% or 50% realistic for 2030? It is. Is it feasible? It depends on each state member. But from the concept of the scientists of science, it is feasible. We have the tools already there. You have IPM, you have other ways of using a set of different tools to improve your production without relying so much on insecticides or pesticides. So the solutions are out. It's just sometimes a political will that is missing.
When you now think about sort of how neonicotinoids are being regulated today, what still needs to change? with regard to emergency regulations, with regard to approving new substances? How could the process be improved from your point of view?
Yeah, so in our report, we identified some situations that can be improved. So one of them is the risk assessment. The way it is done nowadays to approve a substance to be used in the market is actually it has a lot of holes on it. So we are still using one species, one pesticide. When you see in the fields, it's not like that. You have many substances, many different pesticides being applied in one growing season, affecting not only the species that are in the field, but also the biodiversity that is in your agricultural landscape. So we have, um, again, the tunnel vision that you are only focused on the field and you forget everything that is around it. And we have an idea also that nature is not part of agriculture. Nature is there, agriculture is here. And we don't seem to make the connection between all the services that are called ecosystem services that nature provides for your field being provided by nature. So therefore, we always think that the improvement on our production, the quality of the crop is always related to the application of pesticides. And when we start to rethink and revisit these old ways of doing agriculture, using nature in your favor, I think that we might stop the holes on the food process. So we need to have an holistic and a broader view of the approval of a pesticide. That's not only for the field and for the crops, because it affects a lot of different points on your landscape. So this is one. The second one is the tunnel vision. And the third one is that we are always in the hamster wheel concerning pesticide. It's like neonicotinoids are very toxic, so we cannot use neonicotinoids anymore, but they are good. They're very effective. So what we do, their mode of action is quite nice, it's quite effective. So let's try to find other candidates with the same mode of action. And then we are on the loop, on the hamster wheel again, until we find out, these are not good also. So let's, instead of just, it's not a wheel, it's a full environment. So you cannot treat things as in the tunnel vision. So this is another problem that we have nowadays with the risk assessment.
So would it make sense to just prohibit the use of any kind of substance that is based on the same neural mechanisms?
No, I don't think that stopping science to move forward is a solution. I think that there is a legislation in place that states that very persistent or persistent pesticides they have to go under a different type of risk assessment, so it has to go to tier 2. The tools are here, we just need to improve them in order to make better decisions, because the way the tools developed today. We're just stuck in the past. So we need to move forward with the technology, and the risk assessment is lagging a bit behind.
Actually, I read the other day that there was an experiment with artificial intelligence where artificial intelligence created within, I think, a couple of hours or even within an hour, um, 400 new um, chemical substances that can be used as chemical weapons.
Oh,
So
wow.
I immediately thought about sort of what would that mean for pesticides? I mean, could that be the same? And how would you deal with a regulatory process then?
Yeah, that is the thing. We are in the past. We need to move forward because technology is advancing all the time, and the search for new chemicals is something that drives the agro industry market. So they are all the time trying to find new pest, new molecules in order to improve pest control. So we also should move forward and try to find the holes that we have in our process in order to give a full analysis, holistic analysis, or a broad analysis of the agricultural landscape and the impact that that pesticide can cause into that environment.
Would that collide with the interests of the what do you say, agro industry? I mean, those who are producing the chemical pesticides today. What is at stake for them?
I'm an optimistic and I see solution in every places. So I don't think that is a collision. It's just a matter of interest. Are you willing to work together with the risk assessment process and enabling to develop um, good pesticides that are able to control the pest, but are also um, going to take care of the nature around that field? So it's just a matter of willingness. And I see some of I see the change on the agro industry where they are trying to find different alternatives for either microbial control or low risk pesticides or biological control. So I think it actually opens a whole new niche for them to explore instead of uh, clashing against their mission vision.
Very good. Very interesting, Claudia. Is there anything you would like, sort of any kind of message or so that you would like to get out?
Yeah, well, I think that we should quit our comfort zone where we are on this tunnel vision that we think nature is separated from the field, the agricultural field. And we should try to make some effort to understand how they can work together and how they can help each other in the sense of pollinators can help increase the production and the quality of your crops and so on, and not work against it. Everything that's new is yeah, everything that's new is makes us a bit scared. But I don't think that we should be scared. We should work together to accomplish the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork because they are very powerful tools that the European Union has developed. And they are here not to enforce any political wish, but they are here to help the food production in Europe, but also aiming for the future not only of Europe, but also the future of the planet. So I think we should actually work together to embrace it and move forward without the fear that this plan will fail. The plan will not fail.
Great. I'll